Hello, students. So right now I'm going to talk about the Starbucks article. This is the article on page 111. Third place policy puts Starbucks in uncomfortable position amid drug crisis. So this article is about, as I guess everybody knows, that last year or so, the two African American men in Philadelphia were arrested for being in a Starbucks around Rittenhouse Square for just being there, and that led to Starbucks changing their whole policy and shutting down for that day to come back with the fact that they're an open place where anybody can go and use the bathrooms, whether they make a purchase or not. So this had unintended consequences. So let's talk about a word for a second. So unwittingly is the same thing as unintended. Wit as in thinking in your mind. So if you unwittingly do something, it means you did something without realizing it. I'm hitting the words. Burgeoning means bursting. Often it's a positive thing. You're bursting with happiness or something, burgeoning. Illicit, legal, and onus is who has the responsibility for something. So in this article, it points out that by the fact that Starbucks has very loudly made the cafes open to anyone and people can use the bathrooms, it has unwittingly made it so that drug users can shoot up in the bathroom. They can shoot up anything, opioids, heroin, and this is a safety hazard with the needles for the workers and the customers. So the article is really about how do you balance these two things, the desire to be open and inclusive, but also being concerned for people's well-being when those policies are taken advantage of, and in this case by the drug users who need a place to go for what for their addictions and having a place to shoot up in private. So basically, that's what the article is about. So it's a dilemma that Starbucks has put themselves in. So it's interesting to think about that. How does one balance out openness versus safety and so forth? So I have a couple of questions here. What is the unwitting dilemma Starbucks now finds itself in because of the change of policy? So I just described it. So I've just answered that question. What is the concept of the third place being described in the article? So to me, there are two really interesting things here. So what does third place mean, third place policy? So it's explained, I think, on page 112, the second page of the article. So, but I will explain it. So what this concept is in sociology is that the first place you have is your home, and your second place is your work. But what we often have in life is that third place, that place that we go in the community where it's neither home and it's neither work. So for some people, that's church or where they go to worship. For some people, it's the corner bar. For other people, it's the recreation center or the playground. The cafes, of course, are burgeoning, to use that word accurately. There are cafes all over the city and all over the country now. So that's an interesting thing to think about. Do you have, you as an individual, do you have a third place? Again, a place that's not home and is not work that you go. Could be the gym. It could be, I don't know, somewhere else, like the corner maybe where people hang out. So it's an interesting thing to think about this now under these special conditions, because the thing that I miss most under in the quarantines and the pandemic is that I don't have my third place anymore. So I'm obviously in my first place, which is home, and second place was going to school and seeing you guys. But what I'm really hurting for is, for me particularly, is Main Street here in Manayunk. I mean, all the restaurants and bars are boarded up and closed down. I can't go to the Grape Room where I do the stand-up comedy. I can't take my daughter to Valeria, which is now our cafe since our Starbucks has left. We used to go every Saturday, and she'd do the homework there. And the women who work the cafe, they know us by name, and it feels good to be able to go someplace and they ask how Allie, my daughter, is doing, and that feels that I just so appreciate that. And similarly, I know people at the Grape Room, and this is my community that again is neither my family and is not my job. There are other restaurants and bars on Main Street, particularly for me, that I just so miss right now. I would love to be at a place, watching sports and just being, again, neither here and neither there. No offense to you guys. And that is the thing that we're really, I think all of us are hurting for, is not having that third place at the moment. So that's something to think about in your writing. What is your third place? What is the value of it to you if you have it? If you don't have it, is it something that you want that would make you feel more fulfilled? And so forth. For some, it just popped in my head. For some, it's the barbershop. Men go, and I guess women too, the salons and spas where they get their nails done. And it's not about actually getting the haircut. It's just about being there and part of the community. So those are things to think about. So I think the two main issues for this article are balancing needs, balancing, in this particular case, the safety issue with the opioids versus being open and inclusive. You could compare that, and it's a concept, because now we have the swiping in at the college, which started after there was one false alarm with the shooting. On one hand, the college used to aspire to being an open, inclusive place, where anyone in the community, you didn't have to be a student, could go and get something to eat in the cafeteria, can walk around. You might be inspired to take classes just by seeing, the activity that's going on, by going and watching a basketball game. But now you can't get in unless you're a student. So there are safety concerns because of guns and so forth that we all have to swipe in, but something was lost in that process, that it isn't as open a place as it used to be. So again, that's sort of a concept. That's me making a comparison using institutions have to balance the openness to security issues. We see this in the Starbucks article when it talks about being open and inclusive to people of all races, but this caused a problem because they made it too open for drug users. We can see this at community college where now people have to swipe in. They made it more restrictive, but something was lost. So these, again, that's a concept there. A couple of the things that I have in terms of possible topics. The article describes how Starbucks' assertion of third place policy has unintended consequences. I guess is a third kind of issue here, the unintended consequence issue. Unintended consequences are often problems, no matter how well-meaning a person or company is. So that come up. So we have, so describe a situation of unintended consequences of a decision or action that either you made or something that you witnessed. So again, I think this is a very broad, interesting topic. You do something, you think this will work, this is a good idea, I'm going to do this in raising my child, or I'm going to move to this neighborhood, I'm going to buy this car, and whoa, something happens and you did not expect that to happen, and there could be big unintended consequences where you meant well, you tried to do, you thought about it and you said this will work, and it did not happen the way you seemed. I think that's an interesting thing to be mindful of. Can a business or institution be inclusive without conflicting needs arising? If so, describe how to go about it. This when interests of varying parties will be in direct conflict. If not, how should an institution prioritize it? Okay, so obviously you could read this for yourself. I'm looking at the guides. I'm looking at page 29, of course. So here, let me just explain my own. So what this is about is, when you have conflicts, is it possible? So do you have, for example, a solution? What should Starbucks do? They want to be open. They don't want needles. They don't want drug addicts using their bathrooms, causing a threat to workers and to customers. Is there some way to balance this conflict, or how would you prioritize? And this comes up in raising children. You want to let your children have freedom to some extent, but you want to keep them safe. How do you do this? Is it possible to do both, or do you have to prioritize? In what way would you prioritize? So again, you could use any content, any examples, but this is what this question is trying to get at. The article talks about people having a third place, a place different from home or work. Do you have a place? Do you have that kind of place in your life? If so, what is it, and what does it bring out in you? What would you want your third place to be? So this is interesting to me, this idea that it's, that you go out and you have this additional thing. Like I said, for me, having the things that I've discovered out in the cafes and bars and comedy clubs really give me something that is, again, it's not family, which is for me, I feel very lucky overall. It's, I'm lucky, happy with my family, I'm happy with my job, but there's a way in which when you go out into the world to this third place, you are different and yet somehow more yourself. Okay, I hope this helps. And this is also, people can write about this in the article Reflections. And I'm going to stop now so it doesn't get too long. Thank you. Bye bye.